So when I was an opera singer, I always imagined that the whole properties of sound healing, clearing chakras, and understanding about that while I was singing, I was having a great time on stage and clearing the people in the audience. And I figured that was it. That was what I was supposed to do.
So wait a minute,
That,
hold on a second. So you were like using your voice as the sound healing to send healing into your audience? Is that what you're saying?
well, at that time, I did use a little bit of intention, but mainly there are different notes that clear different chakras.
Okay, this is fascinating. So would you mind sharing what you understand about these notes that clear each of the chakras? Because I've
Sure.
never heard anybody say that before.
Oh, really? Oh, no. They all have a note that clears them. Like the C clears the.
My guest today is Rachel Chanmess, who's a shamanic channel and mentor. And she is a medium and an advanced healer. And today we're going to learn about how she can work with you to help you develop these gifts as well. So, Rachel, welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me on.
You're welcome. So it's so interesting. We were chatting a little bit before. You started out not as a channel, not as a medium, but as a professional opera singer. So tell me a little bit about that.
Sure. Well, ever since I was little, I wanted to sing. And I started taking lessons, like operatic lessons, when I was 14. In fact, I couldn't start till I was 14. Like I was told I had to wait, and it was like excruciating to like wait that long to take lessons. And I did. I had a professional career. I mean, not at 14, but later. I had a professional career, and I always imagined, because I was always spiritual. So I always imagine that the whole properties of sound healing, clearing chakras, and understanding about that while I was singing, I was, having a great time on stage and clearing the people in the audience. And I figured that was it. That was what I was supposed to do. But
So wait a minute,
that,
hold on a second. So you were like using your voice as the sound healing to send healing into your audience. Is that what you're saying?
well, at that time, I did use a little bit of intention, but mainly there are different notes that clear different chakras. And I understood that principle. So I just figured while I was singing, they were being healed. It's like a nice, like I'm doing something nice, but I'm also having fun for myself, sort of feeling of the career.
I love this. Okay, this is fascinating. Okay. So we know about the chakras, the energy system that runs through your body, and
Mhm.
each one has a different color and has a different vibration, and it clears and works with a different part of your body. So, would you mind sharing what you understand about these notes that clear each of the chakras? Because I've
Sure.
never heard anybody say that before.
Oh, really? Oh, no, they all have a note that clears them. Like the C clears the root chakra, D for the neck, the sacral, then E for the solar, F for the heart, G for the throat, and then A for your third eye, B for your the
Crown
crown
chakra?
chakra, and then the high C clears your soul star chakra, which is a fifth dimensional chakra where our soul sits, and that is the most powerful one. And I was a lead soprano, so I would sing a high C. And I knew that was that's why people love it, because it really connects you to your soul. It really clears that chakra. And so I would think, oh, so every time I sing a high C, everyone's activated.
I've never heard anybody say that, and I've also not really heard anybody talk about the chakra that is.
Oh, there's many. There's many more.
I know I've heard people talk about their 12. They're actually 12. I've heard people talk about their 24 because they're in the front and the back. So there's a whole bunch of stuff. So how did you go from being this opera professional singer to getting into and understanding all of this advanced healing? Because I think healing in the future is going to be in the way of sound and frequency
Mhm.
and vibration and potentially light as well.
Yes, light and
So I'm
sound.
guessing that you are along the lines if you're talking about these sound healings. So what does it mean to be an advanced healer, and what are the gifts, I guess, of healing that go along with that?
Well, I use a lot of different things and I put them together, and that's how I teach it as well. So I use Reiki. I'm a Reiki master, and I have my own Reiki that I teach, psychic Reiki healing. And then I also use advanced or master level light language, which is bringing in light codes. And I use my voice mostly, but I teach it in all different ways. And I also use channeling. So my channeling is not just messages when I trance channel, but I trance channel healing. So this is what was like the biggest change for me, going from a career where there was so much study involved, languages, understanding, acting, there's many, many layers to opera, to going to a business where I just channel it and I don't have to know all the things. Because
Okay,
I'm just letting them do it through me. I'm just the vehicle
the
for their
vehicle.
healing. Yeah.
So you used a term that I don't think I'm familiar with, and I'm sure a lot of people in the audience are not, and it's called trance-channeling. So what does that
Trance
mean?
channeling. Trance channeling is a full body channeling. So there's many kinds of channeling. There's what I call relay or straight channeling, where, I'm getting this message from so-and-so and they are saying to this, blah, blah. I'm talking as Rachel. I'm telling you what this person is saying. That's relay channeling. That's regular channeling. And then trance channeling is where I step aside and I let the being come into my body and speak through me. Now, this is like a high level mediumship where you have to understand a lot about discernment, beings of the light, protection and things like that. And that's how I teach it. And that's, we see people do this, like Bashar's a famous one, or, Amanda Ellis does it a lot. We'll just let them speak through us. So I do this with all kinds of guides because that's how I teach it, to learn how to do it with all your spirit guides, and then with all different kinds of guides, and then your partner guide, like the main guide. And my main guide is the blue Avian named Alpar-a-be-am that the chapter is about. But how I got here from opera is like a whole other story. You want to you want me to answer that
Sure,
too?
go ahead and
Okay.
share your journey, because I think that what my channel is really about is empowerment.
Oh yeah.
And I interview all kinds of people who have had near death experiences, spiritually transformative experiences. Sometimes they're a channel, sometimes they connect with angels. And the more I do this, the more people are coming in and asking to share their messages about what they're doing. And I think that the purpose of this channel is to help people as they awaken to connect with and understand who they really are, like on a soul level. Who are we? And every person is picking up a different message, a different meaning, a different concept that maybe they didn't understand before, and they're trying to make sense of it. So we never know who we're reaching. I always feel these videos reach whoever is meant to hear them, whoever is meant to connect with them. And I always tell people who are watching, take in what resonates, push away what doesn't. Either it's not for you, it's not for you now, it may never be for, but you'll know. You have to listen to what feels right for you, and that ebbs and changes over time. So yes, let's go ahead and share your story, because there are definitely people out there that are looking for this information, and I think it's really helpful when people can connect to something, or maybe can relate to something that they're going through.
Well, I agree with everything you just said. And that's like my whole thing, is that we need to really empower people. And when I teach my students how to heal and how to, trans channel and bring messages, it's all about how to empower your client, because I don't want to make people dependent on me to tell them what to do by channeling their spirit guides. I want people to connect with their spirit guides so that they can get their own messages, and they don't have to do it in the high level of trance channeling. There's many ways to connect to your spirit guides, and I teach all of that. That's like my main thing. I just
Well,
want
thank
everyone
God
to
I
be
don't
able
have to
to.
learn how to sing a high C, because that's probably never going to happen in this lifetime.
Well, my students, like when they do light language, they just do whatever. It doesn't have to sound like an opera singer. Like that just happens to be like what I do. But my students just bring through the healing, and you actually, you'd be surprised. People really sound very good when they're bringing through light language, even if they don't really sing. It's very interesting. And actually, I probably sound worse than when I sing, because sound healing is very interesting, and it can use dissonance, meaning, sounds that kind of like make you feel a little off to help correct things or release things. So it's not always like beautiful, that the uncomfortable parts work better.
Well, that's interesting. Okay.
So when I was an opera singer, everything just didn't seem to work in the way that I thought it would. First of all, being an opera singer is really, really expensive. There's so much that you have to do, and then your gigs aren't very long. They may pay well, but then you have stretches in between. You have so much to learn. You need help for all that. It's very expensive. So during all that time, I just kept feeling like I was called to something big. And it's not about, I want fame. That's really not it at all. I just want to do my thing and be happy and not have to be stressed. It was more about making a living as an opera singer. I really was trying to get it to a place where it felt like it was really going well. And I have to say that for all the opera singers, that's like 5%. Most people really, really struggle as you'll even see people who seem to be very famous and are doing their thing and they're still struggling financially. It's a difficult career. So I was always trying to get to that next level. I kept feeling like that was my destiny. I really felt that. There's a lot of things I've known since I was a kid that are true, and I've found many of them coming true, which is wild, just wild that I always knew. And one thing I always knew is that I was supposed to help people or be well seen or something like that. And it wasn't about that I really want to be famous or anything. So what was happening was I just didn't have enough gigs, and it didn't have enough big stage gigs. And yet every time I would sing for someone, they would say, oh my gosh, this is a world-class voice. Why isn't she singing everywhere? And then I would be like, great, they like me, they're going to hire me. And I didn't get that much. And so I always felt like, oh, there's a block. I must be blocking myself because obviously this is like my calling. It's what I'm supposed to do. People are being healed. I'm having fun. Like that's the thing. And everyone's saying so. Everyone is telling me. I had high level agents. I had all the things. And I would have like a great gig and then nothing, so I just couldn't figure it out. And so I started going deep into spirituality and like working on myself, trying to figure out what was my block to abundance, what was my block to making it in this business. And all of that kind of led me on this path. And then eventually I was 39 and I figured I just couldn't put off being a mother any longer. I really wanted children. So I had a child. And then that just like
you just made the sound of like the record needle just dragging across the
room. That's just it. Like now, of course, I don't want to leave my kid with a nanny full time to go all over the world to sing. Like that seems ridiculous. And then all the money I make goes to the nanny. Like, how am I going to live in New York?
Right.
And so first thing we did was move out of New York. And once you move out of New York, then it's even much harder because now every audition is expensive. Like instead of going to auditions every week, I have to make a big trip. It's expensive, it's just like a roller coaster. So anyway, eventually it just seemed like it was over and I was just devastated. I had worked my whole life for this. Like, it was my dream. Like, what am I going to do? I also felt it was a big calling. Like there was something about it that I was going to use it to help people in some way. I didn't know how, but it was going to be something. And then we were in this horrible car accident, like all this stuff happened. But what it led to was I had this session with a medium. She was amazing. And I talked to a friend who had passed. It like answered so many questions. He came through and said, oh, it's all going to work out. You're going to have everything you want. You're going to get all these things. And it felt like he was talking to me about opera, but he was talking about this career that I have now. I listened to the recording later and I was like, oh, now it makes sense. So then I talked to someone else. I talked to my dad. He had passed. That was really nice. And then the third time I was like, I just want to meet a spirit guide. I've never been able to meet a spirit guide. Every time I asked a medium, they were like, oh, I can't tell you who your spirit guide is, which is crazy. And so I was like, I just want to meet a spirit guide. But instead of a spirit guide, I got my uncle. And my uncle was like, you need to be doing what she's doing, which I thought was just like, that's nuts. How am I going to do that? Like, you're dead and she's talking to you. Like, I mean, was so far from that. Like I might maybe a little psychic, like maybe I know, like, don't go that way. That's a bad idea. Like that's about it. I didn't know how I could possibly do that, but I do that now. So she was right. She told me, oh, go take some lessons with this person because she lived in another country. So go take some lessons with this person. So I did. I started. Then one day there was this trance-channeling medium class. So I took that class. And then that's when it all opened up because I was thinking, I'll use my voice to do sound healing. It'll take me about 20 years to learn how to do that because there's so much to learn. Gotta learn all the science and all the details and figure it out. And then, in my dotage, in my retirement, I will do sound healing. But then I just found out I could just channel it. And so then I just started working in that way. And it just took off. So I got very lucky.
Wow, I think that luck always is where opportunity meets preparation. There is no luck. And I think that especially in the spiritual community, you definitely are drawn to and people come to you when everything is supposed to unfold. So I'm curious about this advanced sound healing. I'm so into alternative healings and I'm so excited about what's coming into the world. So tell me a little bit about the types of healings that you've participated in and what people have had as a result of working with these sound healings.
Well, my real focus is to help other people do what I do. So most people who come to me are coming to come to this level. So they want to, I need to help them open up their psychic senses, release. Of course, there's a lot of clearing. We are all trying to release all this old density, old patterns, old programming, and clearing things like that from people, but up leveling them a great deal and introducing them to their beings of light who are helping them, their spirit guides, things like that, and then teaching them how to do things. So, and teaching them how to do the sound healing so that they can do that. So for some people, sessions are their thing. My students, they just do a lot of sessions and they heal people with that. So I would say the sound healing that I do, it really is a mixture. I'm bringing through a channel of light codes, healing, Reiki, all of that mixed together. And I am consciously saying, this is Archangel Metatron. He's coming through me. This is his message. This is his healing. Everything that I'm bringing through, it's not me doing it, but I do have a whole, way that I do it. So outline, I guess. So I come in, I clear the auric field. I check for any problems, any interference, clear all of that, go through all the chakras. I clear more than 16 chakras. I clear the 7 in the body, the 3D chakras, and then a 4th high heart chakra. I clear the earth star below, 5th dimensional chakra. Above the head, I clear several 5th dimensional chakras, then a 6th dimensional chakra behind the head, a 6th dimensional chakra above the body. And then for some people, an 8th dimensional chakra and higher, depending. Well, for most people, 8th dimension or higher, depending on where they're at. And then I bring their chakras as high as I can because then that helps them connect to the spirit realm. So nobody's 5th dimensional, but we can move in these higher dimensions in our meditation or our connections with spirit. And so just trying to get people in that place where they can do it themselves. And then I teach classes and things like that. So with sound healing, I have brought through with sound healing, with Reiki, with all of this mixture, psychic surgery. I've seen things like breast cancer disappear. I went to the mammogram to check on it and it was gone, or removing things from people, or clearing up surgeries. Sometimes people come and they already have a surgery planned, and they're like, help. Surgery is next week. So you just I do a surgery session, clear up the surgery for a best outcome. And I can do that for births too. I teach people how to do that with birthing and birth portals, things like that. So I see lots of beautiful things, but I have to say that really my focus is the upgrade. So that's where I spend more of my time helping people.
Okay, that's amazing. So where the people that are watching, some of them will be able to work with a sound healer, but a lot of people are trying to incorporate little nuggets of information of things that they can do for themselves without having to go outside of themselves. So can you give everybody watching one hint of something that they could do that would impact themselves, that they don't have to go outside of themselves to get from somebody else?
Yes, sure. And I have tons of this. I have a podcast. I have a show coming out on Ethereal TV, which launches soon. I have a lot of millions of nuggets everywhere, a blog.
Okay. Okay. So people can already get some of this stuff for
Yeah,
free from your different places.
I did, but the main thing that I really want people to understand is that everyone has a lot of spirit guides. We don't just have one, or maybe I have a spirit guide. Everybody has them, because we're not supposed to be going through this life alone, clueless, not knowing what to do. We are supposed to be relying on our spirit guides, and which is part of ourselves. That is relying on yourself, learning how to connect with them and really communicate with them. So even if you have no clairs open at all and you want to hear from your spirit guide, then you can just ask for a sign and start building a map of signs with your spirit guides. So you ask for a sign. That's how I started too. A lot of people connect with their angels by asking for a sign and seeing feathers or angel numbers, 111, things like that. That's a really good way to start. Now, when you get that sign, you have to say, that's a sign, not, oh, I was just thinking it's a coincidence, or I was just thinking of that. So that can't be a message that I just heard because I was just thinking of that. No, a lot of times your spirit guides will give you a message and then they'll say, hey, what was Lori thinking 10 minutes ago? Let's make sure she sees something related to this message 10 minutes ago so that she will really understand this message now. But where you're at, you're like, oh, well, I just saw a blue butterfly, so they can't be showing me a butterfly for transformation. That's not a sign. But they're actually trying to say, yes, it is. Like, that's their way to make you really like get that confirmation, but we take it the wrong way. So, and that's because we have been programmed that way. I mean, that's on purpose programming to tell us that, we can't believe ourselves. It's all made up. It's just imagination. And all of that is just gaslighting. We have to really believe in the messages that we receive. And if you just start believing in them, if you just start taking them and saying, yes, okay, this is a message, and you don't have to understand everything about it, but I have received the message. Thank you. Send me more. Then they will give you more. And you can open your own clairs that way by doing that.
I love that. Rachel, that's so helpful. I've talked about this. Actually, the second most popular video on my channel is about signs and synchronicities. And I will post up here a video I did about connecting with spirit guides, because there are some nuances to it. But the more that you connect to your signs, the more you will get. I've received
Yes.
thousands of signs in my spiritual journey, and they have been guideposts that have helped me tremendously. I think it's one of the most powerful things that we can do to ourselves, is understand that there really are no coincidences.
There aren't. There aren't. And it is all about your guides, like really trying to put you in a direction. I built my whole career just by taking one step at a time. I asked my spirit guides, what do I do next? They told me to do some things. Some of them I thought were totally crazy, but
So
but it
give
worked.
us an example of something you thought was totally crazy that wound up not being so crazy when you actually worked with it.
Well, actually, this is what my chapter is about in the beings book.
Okay, so let's back up a little bit so not everybody who's watching understands. So I have been interviewing several people that I was reached out to by somebody who is a part of this book called The Beings, and each person has a chapter. So I talked to somebody who had one where they had UFO sightings. I had another one that just had a spiritually transformative experience, somebody else that was meditation. So your chapter is a little bit different. So why don't you explain what your chapter is, and then you can talk about this skill that you were led to from your spirit team.
Okay, well, so my chapter is about blue avians. They are a type of galactic being, okay, extraterrestrial. So I had been helping people for years with my business connect to all different types of beings. I connect to fae a lot, elementals, like dragons and fairies and things like that. They're a different type of spirit guide, and they do exist. They just are in a higher density frequency. So I connected people to those things. That was like the first thing that spirit said I could do that I thought was crazy. They said, you can connect them to this being or fairies or unicorns, you can do that. And I was like, really? And so I started trying that and it worked. So then I started this monthly group, which I still have. It was back in 2018 or 2017, where I would connect people to different groups and then groups of beings of light, and they would come with their grids or whatever they had that could help us, a healing modality, something like that. So each month I'd connect them to all these beings. And I did this forever and I still do it. But I had connected them to all these beings. And then one day, this blue avian shows up and he's like, now it's time to connect them to galactic beings. And I was like, no, I don't think so, because that's crazy. Because I mean, I already connected to them to unicorns. Like, I don't know how much further I can push this. Like, nobody's going to believe me. You know, what's high school going to think? Like, like all these people from my hometown must think I have lost my mind. And so I was like, no, thank you very much. But no, I don't think I'm going to do that. And he was like, no, you really have to do it. And I was like, no, I am not. So this is what happened when I did a different group of beings every single month. And suddenly there was no one coming forth. It was usually pretty easy. I always knew who was coming next month. And there was no one. There was nothing. I had no ideas. I went from having a million ideas to nothing. It's like nothing worked. And I was like, uh-oh. It was like coming up to that date of like the next month where I kind of needed to tell my members like what was coming up, and I had nothing. And so finally I was like, okay, fine, but let's please start in January. I'm going to want to start in December. Can we just do it in January? So he was like, okay, fine. So then the ideas came back. We did it another month. And then starting in January, we did different galactic beings every month. And it was truly amazing. It was great. I'm so glad I did. But I was so scared to do it. I mean, this is another one of those things where I was just like, that's nuts. Nobody's going to like that. And then, of course, I have like my sister, other people saying, maybe you should just stick to angels. Like, people like angels. I'm like, maybe I should just stick to, you know, who I am and what I'm supposed to be doing. Thanks for your advice, but no.
So what are blue avians? Where are they from? And are they like us, you know, like humans,
Humanoid.
just souls having just having an experience?
So that's a great question, because that's one thing that I really like to get into. It's like, are you incarnate in a body, or are you showing me yourself when I speak to these beings as a Palladian, but you're not in a body right now, you're a soul, you know? So it's kind of like where you talk to your past grandmother and she's showing herself as a grandmother, but right now she's living a life as a Syrian, or like as an angel or something like that. You know what I mean? So that's really one of the questions I always ask. So the blue avians that I've talked to are incarnate. They are in a body, and their body looks a little bit like a blue, well, the ones that I've met at first, they're really not all blue, but that's what we have been calling them. But they kind of look like a blue big bird a little bit. But they look similar to where you've seen hieroglyphics of like Thoth or someone with its beak. That's the ones I've seen that they look like that. And they have a lot of feathers. And I've met other colored avians as well. They call themselves a Kier, actually, is what they tell me. And they came forth to tell me actually once. So one day I talked to another one, and he is actually, his name's Donnell, and he's from the Galactic Council of Light, and he oversees the Blue Avian Council, which is the Kier Council, which is a council of 5, which Alpar is also on. So, you know, everyone's connected to a council. This is the one I'm connected to. But I feel always that I am a Palladian starseed. So when Donnell showed up and he was like, we sent you here, this Kier Council is the one that sent you here because we needed your help on Earth. And because of the way that you are, which is like passionate and which was something I was working on. I was like, oh, I'm just so too much, you know? And he was like, that's exactly why we wanted you, because you have a lot of passion and we thought you'd really get the message across. So the message that I'm supposed to be bringing forward is not to be afraid of these beings, not to be afraid of your spirit guides, but to connect to them and have them help you in your life. Like, that's my main thing. So they came forward and told me that. And that was like a big deal. So that's what the whole chapter is really about. I talk about Donnell, how I talked to him that one time, and how Alpar's helped me so much. And then I did some trance channeling, and I put that in the chapter as well, just the transcript of that, just word for word what happened and what their messages were, which was mainly focused on shadow work and how to really open yourself up to meet your own guides and things like that, and how to go forward in this mess of the 3D, this density, which is difficult.
So you said that the Avians said that they placed you here on Earth because they needed your help. So what kind of help did they need you to bring forth at this time that you're connecting people to?
Sure. All of us are here because we have a job to do. So it's really no different than anybody else. I just happen to know more about it. My job is to, and also you can call it your soul's purpose, your soul's path, your light path, is to help people connect with their guides, to help them, honestly, to help them live their life in the highest joy, meaning that they can work for themselves if that's the path that they need, or that they have some sort of work that lights up their soul and helps other people. So really, I see myself as helping lots of light workers help lots of people. And it just kind of spreads, and those people help lots of people, and those people help lots of people. And how I do it is teaching them how to connect with these guides. And Alpar's job is to help all the beings connect to the humans. So we kind of meet in the middle, and we knew each other in a former life. And that was like our plan, that we would come together and do this. And so for some people, they might connect to their spirit guides with trance channeling and things like that, like I do, or they might be doing it a different way. They might be bringing forth messages like through writing. You know, authors are always channeling, or perhaps they're doing it as a therapist, or perhaps they're doing it in totally different ways. You know, they're helping people, whatever their goal is or what their soul's purpose is, they're doing it in their way. It doesn't have to be this way. It's just that I teach this way to people who need that way. They want to do this sort of work.
So I'm sure that this is going to be difficult to probably explain, but where in the world are these blue avians located?
So the blue avians, they have, or the Kier, they have a planet that's in the past. So we live in a timeline, sort of time, 3D time, but they don't. So this is where it gets complicated. They say that there is a planet, it's in the past, and I have talked to Kier from that planet before. They weren't blue, by the way. And so they have this past, and then they have what they're saying we would call a spaceship. But he often says to me that the way that we understand things as galaxies, space, spaceships is not correct, that we don't truly understand it. It's kind of like how some people say, oh, there's beings on Saturn, and other people say there's no way there's any being on Saturn because there's no 3D density in there. But there is, because it's not 3D, it's a higher vibration. So to us, it looks like that's impossible. There's no beings on this planet, So that what he explains it to me is it's like a spaceship. It's right outside of Earth where he is now, and there's all different kinds of beings on it. It's not just blue avians, but it's more like a place, a plane of existence. It's more like a plane of existence, but we would see it or understand it as like a little spaceship out there. And
Okay.
so and he says it's like a big city, and there's a lot of avians, but there's a lot of other kinds of beings as well, all kinds of ETs where he is, because that's his job. But then there are other places where they're at. They're on different planets, because there's a lot of planets that are way more advanced than we are, obviously, and they have all different kinds of beings on it, some more than others. And there's other spaceships or other planes that they're on too.
Okay. So another thing that you mentioned about the Avians is that one of them that connected with you is part of the Galactic Light Federation. So we
Mhm.
explain what that means and what the relevance is, I guess, to us.
I mean, what does that mean? I hear that word being kicked around so much that I even hate to say it. And most of the time, I'm not really sure what people are talking about. Like, I feel it's kicked around a little too much. To me, what I see is there are plenty of councils from different places, and we're connected to that. And that's kind of like a governing agency. So I sort of see like for the Cure Council, for instance, there's 5 people on there, and they're in charge of like Cure politics, basically. And then they work with the Galactic Council of Light, and they are a combination of like Donnell's on that council, and his job is the cure, and he represents the cure for them. And he told me I represent, like, he sends me to represent the cure here because there aren't many cure here. There's not that many star seeds of blue avians, very, very few. So they use other star seeds for that. And anyway, I don't really believe star seeds like one thing, because we've been all over the galaxy in previous lives anyway. And your star seed's more about who you're working with. But anyway, I lose track because now I've gone off on like 3 tangents. What am I talking about? Oh yeah, the Council of Light. But so the Council of Light's just, you know, to be honest, I try not to look into it too much, because I think too many people have put too much importance on it. And some people believe it's like a council that like controls the planet and makes sure that we don't ascend too quickly, or that we have to go through trials and things like that. And some people say it's a council that like makes sure that we go through ascension correctly, which is more where I would lean. They have like, this is a class, whatever planet, we can't make ourselves known until this date. We have to only talk to mediums and channels at this time. Like, I would say that's more of what they do. So they're just kind of governing all the planets, or all the planets on this sector, or something like that. And there's many different missionaries there for them.
Wow.
Emissaries.
Well, this has been a fascinating conversation. I've learned things that I haven't really been exposed to very much before. So you told us a little bit about your book already. If people want to connect with you, I know that you have your own YouTube channel and that you do these different courses in these different communities. So explain how people could work with you.
Okay. I'm at soundwavesheal.com. So, of course, going back to sound healing where I started, Sound Waves Heal. And I have a podcast called 5D Channels and Chats with Rachel Chanmess, and I have an upcoming TV show on Ethereal TV. It's called Higher Realm Activations. But you can always find me at Sound Waves Heal. I'm on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and at my website. I have sessions. Anybody could have a small session or join my membership, or even start looking into classes. We could talk about that for anyone who's interested in this kind of work. Either have a like sort of beginner, where you're not really interested in mediumship, and then I have a big program that's a more professional medium channel healer tract. So that's basically it.
Well, that sounds like a lot. That sounds like you're pretty busy.
I'm pretty busy.
Pretty busy. So I've heard of Gaia TV, which is a spiritual channel where all of these different programs and concepts are talked about, and it's a subscription through Amazon Prime. But I have not heard of Ethereal TV. What in the world is this?
So Ethereal TV is like Gaia, but it's just about to launch, but it's launching in several different phases. So the first launch is just on TV, just on the website, basically. And there's, I think, 120 different shows right now, and their goal is 300. So they have 120 shows right now, and they're just streaming as they work on putting it on Amazon, putting it on Roku, all the places, putting it on a phone app. And then there's more to be scheduled shows at certain times, different in every country. There'll be a social media. It's like a whole new way of TV that it's like podcast meets TV. And it's really cool. It's like a new direction of where we're going for TV. And it's all metaphysical, but there's also like cooking shows or health shows, things like that. And it's really cool that they are really dynamic. It's run by light workers who have been doing this work for a long time. So it's incredible. And they happen to be like really experienced coders, and like they know all the things, and they're truly wonderful people. It's like, it's the most exciting thing, because when you learn more about Ethereal TV, then you realize, like, here's a really big sign of where we're going, you know, because when we
So
look
what's the show
around,
that you're going to be on?
my show is called Higher Realm Activations. And my show is all about, it's kind of like a mini version of what I do in my monthly group. So I bring forth one being, I trance channel them, and then they bring something to connect to, like some sort of activation. And that's with sound healing. So I bring that through, and then I take questions so then they answer questions. And then, yeah, that's it. It's like a little half-hour show. So
Well, this has been so fascinating. I love hearing about all these different journeys that people have been on. I love that you went from opera singer to using that to sound heal to all of the other things. So, thank you so much for sharing this with the audience and giving people a few tips that they can do on their own. And thank you for what you're doing to help wake up the collective consciousness. It's greatly needed right now.
thank you. Thanks for what you're doing too. I love everything that you said this is about. That's wonderful.
Aw, thank you. And thank you so much, everybody, for watching.
Thanks, everyone.
Next up, check out this playlist of other NDE interviews. Please like and subscribe. It really helps this channel to grow so I can bring you more content. Thank you for watching. I'm so glad you're here.